I came home from work to find my girlfriend had changed the locks on my apartment, the one my parents own. Her exact words were, "I'm keeping the place. You can go live with your parents." But the real gut punch wasn't her betrayal. As shocking as it was the phone call I made to my parents moments later, expecting a cavalry of support and being met with deafening silence. This is the story of how my girlfriend made me homeless and my family let it happen, and how I systematically took back every last thing that was mine. It was a Tuesday. I only remember that because I'd just closed the biggest sale of my career and was feeling absolutely on top of the world. I stopped on the way home to grab a bottle of Chloe's favorite expensive wine and all the fresh ingredients for the carbonara she loved. I was practically floating up the 3 flights of stairs to our apartment, my head full of our quiet, happy night ahead. Our life wasn't perfect, no one's is. But in that moment, walking up those stairs, it felt damn close. I got to our landing, humming a stupid song from the radio, and slid my key into the lock. Or I tried to. It wouldn't go in. My first thought wasn't panic, just simple confusion. I jiggled it, thinking the deadbolt was just being stubborn like it sometimes was on humid days. Nope. I tried again, pushing a little harder this time, feeling the brass stop hard against an impassable barrier. The key just wouldn't even enter the keyhole. That's when the first cold knot of confusion started twisting in my stomach. I leaned in, my eyes focusing. It wasn't my lock. The old tarnished brass one we'd both complained about was gone. In its place was a shiny new silver deadbolt. It was sterile and totally alien. For a second, my brain refused to process it. I thought maybe I was on the wrong floor, that I'd spaced out in my happy bubble and walked up to a neighbor's door. But no, there was the little cracked planter Chloe kept saying she'd replace, and the welcome mat with the faded cartoon cat she just had to have. This was my door, this was my home, and my key was a useless piece of metal. I knocked, just a light tap at first, then harder. "Chloe, you in there? Something's wrong with the lock." Silence. The silence itself was an answer, and it was a bad one. I knocked again, louder this time, the first real tremor of anxiety creeping into my voice. "Chloe, open up. I think the lock is broken or something." I heard a shuffle from inside, the soft scuff of slippers on the hardwood floor. The peephole, a tiny circle of light, went dark. There was this long, excruciating pause where I could feel her on the other side, just looking at me. Then I heard her voice, muffled but chillingly clear. "Go away, Mark." The words just didn't compute. It was like she was speaking a different language. "What are you talking about? Open the door, I can't get in." "I know," she said. Her voice was flat, with zero emotion. It was the voice you use with a stranger. "I changed the locks." The cold knot in my stomach turned to solid ice. My mind was scrambling, desperately trying to find an explanation. Did we have a fight I forgot about? Was this some kind of twisted, elaborate joke? We'd had a small argument that morning about laundry, a stupid little spat that was over before I even left for work. It couldn't be that. It was impossible. "Chloe, what is going on?" I pleaded, my hand flat against the cold, unyielding door. "This isn't funny. Let me in. I have the groceries for dinner." "No," she said, and this time her tone had a chilling finality that cut through all my confusion. "I'm keeping the apartment. You can go crash with your parents." The floor just dropped out from under me. Her words echoed in the empty hallway. I'm keeping the apartment. It was my apartment. My name was on the lease. My parents were the landlords. They owned the entire building. The sheer, breathtaking audacity was staggering. It was so absurd, so disconnected from any reality I knew, that I just stood there, stunned into silence. The grocery bag, the one holding our whole celebratory dinner, slipped from my limp hand. The bottle of wine shattered, and a splash of dark red spread across the floor like a wound. So, to really get how deep this betrayal cut, you have to understand our setup. I met Chloe 2 years ago. She was vibrant and funny, and she had this magnetic way of making you feel like the only person in the room. I was head over heels almost immediately. After about 6 months, things were getting serious, and we started talking about moving in together. It just so happened that a one-bedroom in the small apartment building my parents owned had just opened up. It felt like a perfect solution. My parents, who'd always been landlords as a side hustle, were happy to have their son as a tenant. They drew up a real lease, the same one they used for everyone else. My name, and only my name, was on it. I was the official tenant, responsible for rent and everything else. Legally speaking, Chloe was just an occupant, a long-term guest. We talked vaguely about adding her to the lease someday, but it was one of those administrative things we just never got around to. At the time, it didn't seem like a big deal. We were in love, building a future. Why would we need a piece of paper to validate that? My parents, especially my mom, absolutely adored Chloe. "She's so good for you, Mark," she'd always say. "She's ambitious, she has her head on straight." My dad, who's a man of few words, just seemed relieved I was settling down with someone he deemed solid. They saw her as the missing piece in my puzzle. They'd come for dinner, and Chloe would lay on the charm thick, laughing a little too hard at my dad's old jokes and asking my mom for gardening advice she never used. They didn't see me and her, they saw us, a single, inseparable unit. I barely noticed it at the time, but they stopped calling it your apartment and started calling it your and Chloe's apartment. The arrangement seemed easy. I paid the rent to my parents' property management company through an online portal every month. It was all by the book. Chloe would send me her half, sometimes a few days late, but she always paid. We split utilities down the middle. It felt like our home. I filled it with my books and my grandpa's old armchair. She brought her art and her collection of weird mugs that made the place feel less like a rental and more like a home. Looking back, the cracks were already there. They were hairline fractures I just didn't want to see. Chloe started getting this sense of entitlement, especially when it came to my parents. It was small things at first. She'd complain about the appliances, saying things like, "Your parents really need to update these stoves." Not the stoves, but your parents' stoves, as if it were their personal job to cater to her whims. When a pipe under the sink started a slow leak, she didn't call the maintenance number listed in the tenant handbook. She called my mother directly on a Sunday morning, complaining that it was an emergency that needed to be fixed immediately. My mom, totally charmed by Chloe and wanting to keep the peace, would then call me all flustered, asking me to handle it so Chloe wouldn't be upset. I remember one Christmas, I bought her a beautiful, expensive necklace. She opened it and her smile was just a little too tight. Later that night, she said, "It's nice, but it's not really me." A week later, my mom called me. "I was just on the phone with Chloe," she said, "and she mentioned the necklace you got her. You know, honey, you really need to listen to what she likes. She feels like you don't pay attention." Chloe had gone to my own mother to complain about my gift, and my mom, instead of telling her that was inappropriate, took her side and lectured me. The power dynamic in our relationship was shifting. Arguments became ultimatums. She started using my parents as leverage. If I disagreed with her on something, she might say, "Well, I was talking to your mom the other day, and she thinks it's a great idea." She was playing this weird political game, positioning herself as my parents' ally against me. She wasn't just my girlfriend anymore. She was becoming an honorary daughter. She'd have these long phone calls with my mom, the details of which I was never filled in on. They were a team. I was just the guy who lived there. The week before it all blew up, things were tense. Nothing major, just 1,000 little paper cuts. She was mad I had to work late a few nights in a row. She felt I wasn't pulling my weight with chores, even though I did all the cooking and deep cleaning. The laundry argument that Tuesday morning was the final straw. She'd mixed her delicate silk blouses with my heavy jeans, and one of my new red socks had turned all her white shirts a lovely shade of pink. She was furious. I was tired from a long week and shot back that maybe if she did her own laundry for once, it wouldn't have happened. I regretted it instantly. I apologized, promised I'd buy her new shirts, and I thought we'd smoothed it over. I kissed her goodbye, thinking it was just a minor bump in the road. I had no idea she was already planning to pave right over me. Standing in the hallway with the sharp, sickeningly sweet smell of spilled wine in the air, my first thought was just pure denial. This has to be a massive, insane misunderstanding. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock my phone. I called her. It rang twice, then went to voicemail, her cheerful voice greeting a phantom caller. I called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. My heart was just hammering against my ribs. My mind was a total whirlwind of panic. What was I supposed to do? Where could I go? My whole life was behind that door. My clothes, my laptop with a critical work project on it, my wallet with all my cards and cash. All I had on me was my phone, my car keys, and the clothes I was wearing. And then I heard her words in my head, a cruel echo. "You can go crash with your parents." Of course. My parents. They own the building. They're the landlords. They'll fix this. A wave of profound relief washed over me, so strong it almost made me dizzy. They'll see how insane this is. Call Chloe and tell her to open the door right now. They would be my advocates. I found my mom's number and hit call. She answered on the second ring, sounding cheerful. Hi, sweetie. How was your day? Mom, I said, my voice sounding tight and strange even to my own ears. Mom, something awful happened. Chloe locked me out of the apartment. She changed the locks. There was a pause, not a short one. A long, drawn-out silence that stretched forever. I could hear the canned laughter of a sitcom on the TV in the background. Mark, she finally said, and her tone had completely changed. It wasn't warm anymore. It was cautious, guarded. What did you do? The question floored me. It felt like a slap. What did I do? I didn't do anything. I came home from work and she's locked me out. She told me to go away. Well, she must have had a reason, my mother said, her voice dripping with an infuriatingly calm logic. Chloe is a sensible girl. She's very level-headed. She wouldn't do something like that for no reason. Did you two have a bad fight?
We had a stupid argument about laundry, Mom. Laundry. It was nothing. She has all my stuff. My wallet, my work computer, everything. Can you please just call her? You're the landlord, for God's sake.
Another pause, even heavier this time. Mark, I don't think we should get involved. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Not get involved. You are involved. You own the building. I'm your son. I'm the legal tenant. She's an occupant who just illegally locked me out of my own home. I was practically shouting now, the sound echoing in the sterile hallway. Don't you use that tone with me, she said, her voice turning sharp and cold. This is a private matter between you and Chloe. You're a grown man. You need to sort out your own relationship problems. We have a good relationship with her, and I'm not going to ruin that by taking sides. I was speechless. A good relationship with her? What about the lifelong relationship with her own son? Were they really throwing me under the bus just to stay on my girlfriend's good side?
So what am I supposed to do? I asked, my voice cracking. I'm literally homeless. I have no money. I don't even have my wallet.
You can come here for the night, I suppose, she said, with the tone of someone doing me a huge, inconvenient favor. But you need to figure this out with Chloe tomorrow. Apologize to her. Whatever you did, just make it right. You know how she gets. I know how she gets? I repeated, my voice full of disbelief. And how is that, Mom? Apparently she's the kind of person who illegally evicts someone and holds their property hostage. And you're telling me to apologize? I'm not having this conversation, Mark. It's your mess. You clean it up. Call your father if you want, but he'll just tell you the same thing. And with that, she hung up. I just stared at my dark phone screen, seeing my own shocked face reflected in it. My own mother. The one person who was supposed to have my back no matter what had just sided with the woman who threw me onto the street. Shaking with a mixture of rage and desperation, I called my dad. Maybe he'd be the voice of reason. He picked up. I explained it all again, the words tumbling out of me. His response was even worse. It wasn't anger. It was just a sigh, a deep, weary sigh that screamed disappointment in me. Mark, he said, his voice heavy with paternal fatigue. Your mother and I, we've talked about this. We like Chloe. She's a good, stable girl. We were happy you were finally with someone solid. We don't want to get in the middle of your lover's spat. Work it out. Be a man. Go and apologize. Apologize for what? I screamed into the phone. For coming home from work? For wanting to enter my own apartment that I pay rent on? An apartment that you own?
It's not about the apartment, son, and you know it. It's about your relationship. You're almost 30. It's time you learned how to maintain a partnership. Don't make us choose.
But they already had. The choice was in every condescending word. They chose her. They chose the stable girl, the one who wasn't their son. They chose the path of least resistance. They chose to believe I had to be the problem because the alternative, that their darling Chloe was capable of something so malicious, was just too messy to consider. I'm homeless, Dad, I whispered. I have nowhere to go. Don't be dramatic, he said, his voice clipped and final. Your mother said you can stay here, but tomorrow You fix this. We're not getting involved." He hung up. I slid down the wall and just sat there on the cold floor next to the pool of spilled wine. The ultimate betrayal wasn't the lock. It wasn't Chloe. It was the devastating silence from the two people who were supposed to be my safety net. They hadn't just stayed silent, they'd actively abandoned me. In that moment, sitting in the hallway of a building my family owned, I had never felt more alone. I had lost my home, but in a much more profound way, I had also lost my family. The 45-minute drive to my parents' house was a blur of headlights and anger. I'd driven that road 1,000 times, but that night, it felt like a foreign country. I was a refugee seeking asylum in a place that didn't feel like home anymore. When I got there, the house was quiet. My old key still worked. I let myself in. My dad was in his armchair, reading the paper as if it were any other Tuesday. My mom was in the kitchen, wiping down a counter that was already spotless. They both looked up as I entered, their faces like blank, neutral masks. "Mark," my father said, folding his paper. He didn't get up. "Did you call her?" I asked, my voice raw. "We told you, we are not getting involved," my mother said from the kitchen. Her voice was so calm and measured, and that made it 1,000 times worse. It was the tone you use on a hysterical child, meant to dismiss, not engage, not involved. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. "You're my parents, and you're my landlords. You're involved on 2 fundamental levels. She illegally evicted me. That's not a lover's spat, that's a crime." "Don't be so dramatic, Mark," my father said, picking up his paper again, the rustle of the pages a clear act of dismissal. "It's a domestic dispute. The last thing we need is police or lawyers. It'll just get messy." "Messy?" I stared at him, incredulous. "I'm standing here with nothing but the clothes on my back, my wallet, my computer, my medication. Everything is in that apartment, and you're worried about things getting messy." "My life is a mess, and you're the only ones who can help." "We are helping," my mother chimed in, her voice dripping with a bizarre martyrdom. "We're letting you stay here, aren't we? You have a roof over your head. In the morning, you can go over there, give Chloe some flowers, and apologize."
Apologize for what?
I finally roared, the sound echoing in the silent, pristine house.
Tell me, specifically, what am I apologizing for?
They exchanged a look. It was quick, a flicker, but it spoke volumes. It was the look of two people confirming their prearranged strategy. "You know you have a temper, Mark," my mother said softly, as if confiding a sad truth. "I'm sure you said things you didn't mean. Chloe is sensitive. You probably hurt her feelings very badly." "I told her she should do her own laundry," I said, my voice full of disbelief. "That's it. That's the crime I committed. For that, I deserve to be homeless?" "There are two sides to every story," my father muttered from behind his newspaper. "We're only hearing yours." And that was it. That's the line that just broke me. They weren't just neutral, they actively didn't believe me. They had already decided on a narrative that made sense to them. Their perfect future daughter-in-law was the victim, and their own son, with his temper, was the problem. "So you've talked to her?" I asked, a cold dread washing over me. My mother started fluffing pillows on the sofa, a classic diversion tactic. "She called earlier," she admitted, not looking at me. "She was very upset, hysterical really. She said you were being impossible and that she just needed some space for a night to feel safe." "She didn't tell you she changed the locks and kicked me out for good?" "She said she needed to feel safe," my mother repeated, her voice now an accusation. "What were you doing, Mark, to make her feel so unsafe?" I felt the air leave my lungs. Safe? From what? A debate about fabric softener? I looked from my mother's evasive face to my father's wall of newsprint. They had built a fortress of denial, and Chloe was inside with them. I was out in the cold. I spent that night in my childhood bedroom. The posters on the wall were for bands that broke up a decade ago. It felt like a museum of a person I used to be, a person who naively thought his parents were his biggest supporters. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, realizing the monsters weren't under the bed anymore. They were down the hall, sipping tea and believing a liar over their own son. Every hour, a new wave of anger and humiliation washed over me. How could I even explain this to anyone? Yeah, my girlfriend stole my apartment and my parents helped her. It sounds like a bad sitcom. Their silence was the most violent part. It wasn't just a lack of support, it was a deliberate withdrawal of love right when I needed it most. Their silence was an endorsement of her actions. It said, "Your pain isn't our problem. Your rights are less important than our comfort. We don't believe you." Chloe had taken my home, but my parents, they had taken my past, my foundation, my belief that I was part of a family that would protect me. They left me completely alone in the dark. Around 3 a.m., lying in that cold, nostalgic bedroom, something inside me shifted. The panic and grief started to cool down and harden into something else. Cold, quiet, calculated rage. The grief was still there, a huge, hollow ache in my chest, but it was no longer paralyzing. It was becoming fuel. They had all made a monumental mistake. Chloe, in her arrogant power play, and my parents, in their spineless desire for an easy, comfortable life, had all forgotten one very simple, very important fact. They owned the building, but my name, and my name alone, was on the lease. I sat up, opened my laptop, and the screen glowed in the dark. My hands were steady now. I typed "illegal eviction by occupant not on lease" and my state's name into the search bar, and there it was. The internet, in its infinite and impartial wisdom, laid out the truth. I read about landlord-tenant laws. I read about the legal difference between a tenant and an occupant. I read, with a growing sense of cold vindication, about self-help evictions. I found legal aid websites and even forums where people told stories almost identical to mine, detailing the exact steps to take. The law was crystal clear. What Chloe did was illegal. Changing the locks and denying a legal tenant access to their home without a court order is a big no-no. It didn't matter if we'd had a fight. It didn't matter if she needed space or felt unsafe. She had no more right to lock me out than a stranger on the street. Only a sheriff can legally remove a tenant, and only after a judge issues an eviction order. It was like a shot of adrenaline. For the first time in what felt like days, everything was crystal clear. I wasn't helpless. I wasn't a hysterical kid to be dismissed. I was a legal tenant with rights, and they had all completely, flagrantly ignored them. My parents' words echoed in my head. "We don't want to get involved. It's your mess. You clean it up." A slow, cold smile spread across my face in the darkness. "Okay," I whispered to the empty room. "I will." My first instinct had been to beg, to plead, to reason with them, but they had shown me that was a dead end. Pleading requires the other person to be reasonable, and they had proven they were anything but. They wanted me to handle the mess. Fine, I would handle it, just not the way they expected. No more apologies, no more flowers, no more desperate phone calls to people who refused to listen. I was done playing on their emotional battlefield. They wanted to avoid a mess. I would give them the opposite. I would give them something clean, procedural, cold, and utterly undeniable: the law. I pulled up the property management website my parents used, the one where I paid my rent every month. I found the contact information for their business, and there it was, listed under legal matters. Their property lawyer. I copied the name and email. The plan formed, sharp and clear in my mind. My parents didn't want to be my family in this situation? Fine. I would treat them exactly like what they were, my landlords. And I would treat Chloe exactly as the law saw her, an unauthorized person illegally occupying my home. The sun was starting to rise, casting long shadows across my old room. It was the dawn of a new day, and I was a new man. The hurt was still there, a deep wound, but for the first time since my key wouldn't turn, I felt powerful. They had pushed me out, abandoned me, and underestimated me. They were about to find out what a huge mistake that was. The next morning, I came downstairs wearing one of my dad's old suits. It was a little big in the shoulders, but it was the only professional-looking thing I had. My mother was making coffee and gave me a tentative, hopeful smile. "Morning, honey. Did you sleep? I was thinking you could go over to the apartment around lunchtime. Give Chloe some time to cool off, maybe bring her some pastries." I walked past her, poured myself a cup of black coffee, and took a long, slow sip, looking her right in the eye. "I won't be doing that," I said, my voice calm and even. but thank you for letting me stay. I appreciate the accommodation.
The formal, polite tone threw her completely. Oh, okay. Well, what are you going to do?
I'm going to handle it, I said, echoing her words back at her. Like you told me to. I walked into the home office and closed the door. I didn't call Chloe. I didn't call my parents' personal numbers. I called their property lawyer. The receptionist put me right through when I stated my name and address, Mark Peterson, tenant at their Oak Street property. The lawyer, a man named Mr. Davies, got on the line. Mr. Peterson, how can I help you? His voice was that of a busy professional. I laid it all out, not with the emotion of a betrayed son, but with the cold, hard facts of a tenant lodging a formal complaint. Mr. Davies, I began, I'm calling to report an illegal lockout at my residence, 123 Oak Street, apartment 3B. Last night, at approximately 7 p.m., I came home to find the locks changed without my knowledge or consent. An unauthorized occupant, a Ms. Chloe Vance, who is not on the lease, has denied me entry and is illegally in possession of the property and all of my personal belongings, including my wallet and work computer. There was a beat of silence on the line. I could almost hear the legal gears turning in his head. Let me get this straight, he said slowly. You are the legal tenant of record for that unit? I am. You can check the signed lease on file with your clients. And this, Chloe Vance is not on the lease?
She is not. She is an occupant whose permission to be there was revoked the moment she illegally locked me out.
And your landlords, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, are they aware of the situation? This was the key. I informed them last night, I said carefully. They instructed me that they did not want to get involved and that I should handle it myself. So that's what I'm doing. I am formally requesting that the landlord, your client, take immediate action to remedy this illegal eviction. As the legal tenant, I need access to my apartment restored immediately. The silence on his end was profound. Mr. Davies was my parents' lawyer. His job was to protect them from liability, and I had just handed him a steaming pile of it. An illegal lockout isn't just a problem for the person who does it. It's a huge problem for the landlord who allows it to happen. Mr. Peterson. Mark, he said, his voice changing, becoming more serious. I understand. This is an unacceptable situation from a legal standpoint. Let me make a few calls. I will handle this. Thank you, Mr. Davies, I said. I expect to have access to my apartment by the end of the day. If not, I will be forced to pursue all available legal remedies, including suing for statutory damages for each day I am denied access. I was quoting directly from a legal aid website I'd studied all night. I hung up. I felt this rush of pure exhilaration. The first domino had been pushed.
Less than an hour later, my mother appeared at the office door, her face pale. Mark, we just got a call from Mr. Davies, she said, her voice a frantic whisper. What did you do?
I did what you told me to do. I handled it. I contacted my landlord through the proper legal channels to report a serious issue. You called our lawyer? She screeched. He's talking about legal notices and calling the police. Mark, this is a family matter. You made it very clear last night it wasn't a family matter, I said, my voice level and calm. You said I should clean up my own mess, so I am, legally, formally, the way a tenant deals with a landlord. My father appeared behind her, his face a thundercloud. Have you lost your mind, bringing lawyers and cops into this over a little fight with your girlfriend? It stopped being a fight when she illegally changed the locks, I said, standing up. Now it's a legal issue, and Mr. Davies agrees. He informed me that as landlords you have a legal obligation to ensure I have access to my apartment. By knowingly letting an unauthorized person lock me out, you're violating my tenant rights. He seemed very concerned about your potential liability. The word liability just hung in the air. It was a word my father understood much better than betrayal. Mr. Davies also informed me that a formal 24-hour notice to vacate is being delivered to the unauthorized occupant as we speak. If she's not out by then, he's filing an eviction with the court, and the sheriff will remove her. My mother looked like she was going to faint. You're having her evicted? By the sheriff? Mark, that's cruel. Where will she go? The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. I don't know, Mom. Maybe she can go crash with her parents. Rest of the day was pure, unadulterated chaos. But for the first time, I wasn't in the middle of it. I was a calm observer, watching the storm I had created from a safe distance. My phone, which had been so painfully quiet the night before, started to blow up. First was a call from Chloe. I looked at her picture on the screen and let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a text appeared. "There's a man at the door with a legal notice for me. What did you do? Call me now." I smiled and put my phone down. A few minutes later, another call from Chloe. Ignored. Then a string of texts, each more frantic than the last. "Mark, this is insane. It's an eviction notice. It says I have 24 hours to leave. You can't do this to me."
My name might not be on the lease, but I have rights. I live here. Your parents will hear about this.
I took a sip of coffee. Then came the flood of panicked calls from my parents. I finally answered my father's. "Mark, you need to call this off," he boomed, his voice tight with panic. "Chloe is hysterical. This has gone too far." "I don't think it's gone far enough," I replied calmly. "Did she offer to let me back into my apartment?"
That's not the point. You're treating her like a criminal.
Her actions were criminal, I stated flatly. Illegal self-help evictions are against the law. Mr. Davies explained that very clearly to you, didn't he?
This isn't about the law, it's about decency, he sputtered.
Decency? I asked, a sharp edge finally entering my voice. Was it decent when she threw me out of my own home with nothing? Was it decent when you and Mom told me you wouldn't get involved and that I was the problem? I'm just using the tools available to me, the tools that you and your lawyer provided.
I could hear my mother crying in the background. Just talk to her, Mark. She'll listen to you, she wailed.
No, I said, and the finality in my own voice surprised even me. I'm done talking. We are now in the following legal procedure phase. You told me not to involve you, so don't. Mr. Davies is handling it. I hung up. The feeling was intoxicating. The absolute helplessness I'd felt just 12 hours earlier was gone, replaced by a cold, hard sense of control. I wasn't winning by yelling or pleading, but by being calm, resolute, and armed with the facts. The cycle repeated all afternoon. Frantic calls from Chloe, which I ignored. Texts filled with threats, pleas, and insults. Then another call from my parents begging me to be the bigger person and stop the process. "She says she's sorry," my mother cried during one call. "She'll let you back in. Just call off the lawyer."
Tell her to text that apology to me, I said. And also tell her that letting me back in doesn't magically undo what she did. The notice stands.
Of course, that text never came. Her messages to me remained furious, entitled, and accusatory. She couldn't believe I would do this to her. Not once did she acknowledge that her own actions were the cause of all of this. The highlight was a call from Mr. Davies late that afternoon. "Mark," he said, sounding like a weary but firm ally now. "I've spoken with your parents and with the occupant. I've made the legal situation very clear to all parties. The 24-hour notice is firm. I advised your parents that any interference on their part could be seen as them contributing to the illegal eviction, opening them up to further liability. I also made them aware that you'd be well within your rights to sue for damages, including hotel costs and punitive damages, which in this state can be up to 3 times the monthly rent." I had read about that. The thought was a delicious, private little victory.
Thank you, Mr. Davies, I said. You've been very helpful.
"Just protecting my clients from themselves," he said with a dry chuckle. "You'll have your apartment back tomorrow. I'll arrange for a locksmith to meet you there at 3 p.m. to give you the new keys. The bill, of course, will go to the property owners." My family's panic continued into the evening, but it had no power over me anymore. Their pleas for me to be reasonable just sounded like the desperate cries of people who'd lost control of a situation they had created. They told me to clean up my own mess, and now they were horrified by the industrial strength cleaning supplies I'd chosen. Before we get to how this all ends, if you've ever felt betrayed or had to stand up for yourself when no one else would, hit that like button and subscribe. It's wild how many of us have stories about finding our own strength when we have no other choice. Stick around to hear how this all wrapped up. See. The next day at 3 p.m., I was back in that hallway. The same hallway where I'd sat in a puddle of spilled wine just 2 days before. but I was not the same man. A locksmith was finishing installing a new, high-security deadbolt. Mr. Davies stood by, a silent, imposing presence. Chloe was gone. She'd moved her things out that morning in a frantic rush, a process I made sure to stay far away from. The locksmith handed me 2 new keys. They felt heavy and solid in my palm. They were keys to my apartment, not our apartment, mine. Mr. Davies clapped me on the shoulder. "It's all yours, Mark. Any more trouble from anyone, you call me directly." I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment felt huge and empty. The spaces where her art and her furniture used to be were like missing teeth in a smile. But it wasn't sad. It was a clean slate. It smelled of cleaning supplies, not her perfume. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was mine. My relationship with my parents is different now. It's strained, polite, and hollow. They've tried to apologize, in their way. "We just didn't understand," my mother said on the phone a week later. "We never thought she would actually do that." But they weren't apologizing for abandoning me. They were apologizing for backing the wrong horse, for having their comfortable world shattered. They were sorry their chosen side lost so spectacularly and made them look stupid. I haven't yelled at them. I haven't demanded a real apology. I've just been distant, coolly polite. A few weeks ago, my mom called. "Hi, sweetie," she began, but I cut her off gently. "Hi, Mom. Is this about the building?" There was a stunned silence. "No, I was just calling to chat," she said. "Okay," I replied. "Well, everything is fine with the apartment. No issues to report. Talk to you later." I ended the call. I treat them like landlords, which, it turns out, is what they chose to be. Our relationship is now transactional, like my rent payment. The warmth and unconditional love I thought was the bedrock of my life is gone, and I've learned, to my surprise, that I can live with that. This whole mess taught me a brutal but valuable lesson. Sometimes the people who are supposed to have your back will be the first to turn on you, not because they're evil, but because they're weak and they value their own comfort above your well-being. They will fail you, but that failure doesn't have to define your story. In the end, Chloe didn't just change the locks on my apartment, she unlocked something in me. A core of steel I never knew I had. I learned that true security doesn't come from family or relationships. It comes from yourself, from knowing your rights, standing your ground, and understanding that sometimes the only person you can truly, unconditionally count on is yourself. And as I stand here in my quiet, empty apartment, I can honestly say I've never felt more at home.
Thank you, truly, for listening all the way to the end. It means more than you know. If this story touched something in you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here. Thank you for being part of this journey.